Welcome to the podcast, Your Future in Sales and Marketing, the podcast that helps you make great career decisions. My name is Mike Dickson, and I'm a professional sales and marketing recruiter. I love what I do, but my biggest frustration is seeing too many people not realizing their career potential. In this podcast, I'll introduce you to my network, an amazing group of business leaders from the biggest tier 1 organizations through to some super fast growth SMEs. They'll share their career journeys and give unique advice and insights on managing your career and leading a function and a business. Join me, Mike Dickson of AXR Recruitment and Search, to help guide your future in sales and marketing. Well, hello and welcome to the podcast, Your Future in Sales and Marketing, with me, Mike Dickson, Director of AXR Recruitment and Search. Now, our purpose at AXR is to help you make great career decisions by giving you access to our network of amazing senior leaders. In today's podcast, we're talking with Daniela Stapleton, Sales Director of the biggest FMCG success story in Australia, Mutti. Daniela, welcome to the pod. How are you?
Hello, Mike. Good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And now we normally start with the usual icebreakers, but I'd like to change it up today and tell you a story. After 25 years of working in recruitment, Michael Page, Hudson, 6 Degrees, around the world, I jumped out of corporate recruitment and I had absolute clarity and I thought was missing in our industry. Now, we're paid to fill jobs in recruitment, and I don't think that always drives the best career decisions. So I wanted to set up a business that looked beyond that, the transaction of the move, that equip people to make great career decisions in order to get the most out of their potential. So in March 2020, I joined AXR as a new partner, very excited. In the same week, COVID hit. So we had absolutely no business. All my ideas were kind of going nowhere. But I had time, so I was able to kind of think about the brand, think about what I wanted to do. I was able to kind of build out salary guides, the sales and marketing collective, to create what I wanted to do with coaching interviews. And I had a great senior network who were incredibly supportive of what I was trying to do, even though there was no business. But it started to trickle in. And one of the first pieces of business I ever got came from Trish Begora, Managing Director of Mutti. And Daniela, we'll explore your career in a second, your pathway to Mutti. And I don't think I've ever told you this, but you were actually the first placement I ever made at AXR.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Good start.
It was a great start. So it was really good because, as we'll talk about today, your pathway to Mutti is quite different. You know, it's a very different business than what you've done before. I thought it highlighted everything I wanted to bring, which was doing things differently, being bold, challenging yourself. And it was a big decision for you. I remember at the time. I was delighted. It was our first placement. It took us 6 months to get off the up and running, but we got there. So I think it's been a great success, and I think it's paid off brilliantly for you. We'll unpick it as we go from your perspective, but I thought it just worthwhile you knowing that, which is quite amusing. Okay, let's get into it. So, as always, we ask our guests what their favorite brand is, and yours is clearly going to be Mutti, but you can't pick it. So, or indeed any other brand you've worked on. So, which one would you pick?
Oh, yeah, look, I think it's a great question because I'd love to mention a few brands I've worked on in the past, but not being able to do that. There's probably 2 brands that come to mind. One's Camilla and one's Nike. Nike's because it's been part of my life forever, been into running, and they've always delivered on function and style and a brand you can trust. But I did want to mention Camilla because it is an Australian brand, an Australian designer, and Camilla is just an entrepreneur who has great success with the brand, survived breast cancer, and just makes beautiful pieces. So for me, Camilla is probably my favorite brand. This point. Camilla. Yes. Camilla. Camilla.
Brilliant.
Camilla.
Okay. So back to you. Where are you from? Tell us a bit about early life.
Okay. So I'm South American. I was born in Valparaiso in Chile, in South America, and my family moved over to Australia when I was 7. So where I'm from, it's famous for Pablo Neruda, who is a famous poet, Chilean poet, that won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. So that's what it's famous for. But it's a really beautiful sort of seaside town. So I migrated then to Australia, and I guess my earlier years were very much lots of culture, fun. My family were very much into dancing and cooking and meals, so I had a really great upbringing, and also very much into education. So my dad was an engineer, mum studied mathematics at uni. So there was always a real drive for, personal development, I guess, and education in my household growing up.
Fantastic. Do you remember much about Chile?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Obviously, like my whole family's still there. There was some of my family that migrated to the US, but yeah, it's just very cold in the south, very warm in the north with the Atacama Desert and sort of beach in the middle. So lots of surfing and beachside sort of coastal town.
Well, I did not know that about you, so that's interesting. Cool. So let's jump into your career. Let's go right back to the beginning. Did you have any plan when you started out, what you wanted to do?
I think back at school, I was very much into sort of economics, business, politics, so studying those subjects, but also really loved writing. So I think as I was approaching a decision on my university degree, it was between journalism and business, but I know there was just a gut instinct as I had to make the call to pursue with a business, so commerce degree. But yeah, I always had sort of an inkling of what I wanted to do.
Yeah. And because you went to Wollongong Uni.
Yes.
And then, seemed to kind of get into Unilever. How did that happen? How did you kind of land at Unilever?
I guess at uni you do the part-time work. So I worked in retail for General Pants. I also worked for a field business, working for Panasonic in store. And then my first couple of jobs were for a small food manufacturer as a marketing assistant, working for a COO at the time, and then also for Pacific Brands. Pacific Brands, it's now called Hanes, and for those who don't know, they own Bonds and Burley, household names. And my job was working, looking after Big W and Myer in an assistant role. And the way I got into Unilever was through, you never know how people are going to impact you throughout your career, but I was really into data and insights when I was in that role. And my manager at the time said, you would really enjoy FMCG because clothing was slightly different in terms of the data they had available at the time, and put me towards a role that was available at Unilever, which I then applied for and I got. So that's how I started at Unilever in an Indies role.
How good was your manager?
I know. She's amazing.
Yeah. She'll say, okay, you're better than this. I think it's a different pathway for you, and I'm going to help you get there. That's
right. And her background was FMCG, and she'd come in and, so she saw that in me. And at the time, I just didn't even question it. I thought, that's good.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, you accelerated pretty quick in Unilever. And within, 3 years, you went to New Zealand, which is actually, overseas moves are not uncommon, but they're quite unusual quite early on in career. So how did that happen for you?
I loved working at Unilever, actually. It was a great company. At the time, lots of wonderful people that I worked with, colleagues that were really capable and passionate. And so I had already had 3 roles. So I moved from a state business manager to Franklin's to the National Metcash Tea. And at the time, with all large organisations, there's a review of the organisation in terms of structure, and there were a review in Australia and New Zealand, and there were new roles available, and there were also roles that were going to be maybe reviewed. But there was an opportunity in New Zealand, and it was for a role reporting to the country manager. And I thought to myself, well, what have I got to lose in putting myself forward for that role? And then I was appointed into that role, and I moved to New Zealand within 3 years. And I think that's an opportunity that comes up, and they come up a lot in a lot of organisations. And it's about, I guess, your perspective and how you look at it. And I did not know anyone in New Zealand. I didn't know the market, the customers. I only had part of the portfolio of Unilever in Australia, but I was looking after the entire foods portfolio in New Zealand. So it was quite a big leap for me to take, but I did.
Absolutely huge. And you were in Auckland, I assume?
Auckland, yeah.
Yeah. And what did you get out of it? How did it work out for you?
Look, I think personally it was really enriching in terms of self-belief. In terms of building new relationships and new experiences, and learning a new market. And I think going into that from a personal perspective, I think you start to understand that you're capable of a lot more than you perhaps believe at the start. And then the second thing was professionally, a very broad experience. So all of a sudden, from looking after a singular customer, I was heading up a customer, cross-functionally dealing with finance, supply chain, marketing category. So, really stretched me in terms of the discussions I was having and the work I was doing. And also in that time, our team won Team of the Year. I was nominated Salesperson of the Year, and I won twice People's Choice Awards. So for me professionally, it was like a great move.
It worked really well. I think a lot of people move later on in life when they're, I guess it's bigger roles, they may be supported more financially, but that comes with more challenges because you might, at that stage you might have family, but when you're younger, what a time to do it.
Yes.
No ties. But you obviously did very well there. Just tell the listeners a bit about how you left New Zealand and what your team did with you.
So it was really difficult, actually, the decision to leave. But like all farewells, you have your drinks, your lunch, your farewell gift and your cards, right? So the standard. So I left with the team to go for lunch. And we drove down to Auckland Bridge. And as we approached, I realised this doesn't look like lunch. It looks like I'm doing something different here. And what the surprise was that I was jumping off the harbour bridge, as in a bungee jump. So
that's so New Zealand.
That's what's going on here. So my farewell gift was walking across the bridge and jumping off it. And touching the water with my hands as I landed. So yes, thank you very much, Unilever New Zealand.
Absolutely superb. Yeah, great. And then back to Australia and into Cerebos, a business that doesn't exist anymore, but I know it well. I used to have as a client back in the day. So why Cerebos?
I think I love being out of my comfort zone because I think that's where you grow the most. And I had a really great opportunity at Unilever to move into a customer marketing role, which I really considered greatly. But then with Cerebos, the opportunity was to head up the channel for independents and private label. So it was a stretching role with people leadership and really difficult decision to make. But again, just a great brand, a lot of great people working there, which I knew. And so, I decided I can do this, and I took the opportunity to move back and try out that role.
There was a lot of Unilever people in Cerebos at the time, wasn't there?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I remember now, actually.
Yeah. And now Cerebos, acquired by Kraft.
Yeah.
But still, great brands like Greyvox, one of Australia's most trusted brands.
Yeah. Iconic brands.
Iconic, yeah. So with great market share, some mature categories. So it was a really challenging role, but it was really interesting.
Yeah, cool. So after Cerebos, a successful time there, via CCA into Pernod Ricard, so global liquor, premium brands. You had 5 years there, 2 big roles, managing Coles and then Woolies. What was liquor like and premium brands like compared to your FMCG kind of history?
Yeah, I actually didn't think it was that different, to be honest, in terms of the job, the role. So there was still a real focus on joint business planning, category management, relationship building, promotion. So I think a lot of the core was similar, except the product was different. So it was all really about learning the product and the company and all new customers. So you got BWS versus Woolworths. So there's some synergies, but there's also some differences. But I joined that business at a time when the sales director had just been appointed, who was Jeff McKenzie at the time. And we were on this transformation journey. So we were new SLT, driving the channel, so the sales strategy. So, really setting the priorities for the customers for the next 3 years. So it was a really exciting time, great brands, and I really enjoyed it there.
Yeah. And, Jeff, great leader. A previous podcast guest, if you want to look him up, guys. It's a really interesting pod I did with Jeff maybe a year and a bit ago. Now he's the third leader you've worked for has been on the pod. We've had Jeff, Jamie Eastley, who was Cerebos and is now Primo. Trish Pagora, I mentioned earlier on, MD of Mutti, has been on as well. So I don't know if that's just a bizarre coincidence that you've worked for 3 podcast guests, but give me an example. What would the top thing be that you've learned from each of them, and who else would you like to work for in our podcast list?
Oh, look, I think, so I've worked for Jamie, Jeff and Trish, who are, all your guests here on the podcast. And I think I worked with them at different stages in my career. So Jamie was earlier in my career, and what Jamie taught me was about business storytelling, building slides and business cases for the board, and the square thinking methodology, which I find brilliant. And above all that, he taught me about resilience. So real strategic thinking, storytelling and resilience. Really I was heading up the Coles account for the first time under his leadership. Jeff, I joined the SLT. Obviously, the business was starting a new phase and new journey. So with him, I learned the most about people, team leadership, high performance teams, and personal development of yourself and others. So there was a lot of great learnings from Jeff around, prioritization of yourself and your team, particularly around new teams as they start forming and developing. So that was great. And with Trish, I think, again, the next level is around learning about a subsidiary, right, and how a subsidiary runs. And for Trish, it's all around the passion, the global picture, and building the brand. So from Trish, who's my current boss, I'm learning a lot about how you really build a brand across a market, and that's really exciting.
It's interesting working for three very different people, different times of your career, and different sorts of businesses. But it's a real lesson in that, in terms of, don't just get comfortable. You might have a great relationship with your boss, but there comes a point where you've got to change it up.
Yes.
Whether it's inside your business or outside, but you've obviously had three very different experiences there, and I'm sure other good bosses too. But those are the three that clearly I know best, so that come to mind. Now, back to your career and then to Mutti, obviously, which I mentioned right at the start. My first placement, I haven't even told Trish that. But if I approached you about Mutti today, and as we do work for you guys, obviously, and love our partnership, it's kind of easier to get your head around rationally. The business is got a bit of a lot of momentum, is well known, is winning awards, and actually it's quite exciting. A lot of people are immediately will go, oh yeah, I know Mutti. Whereas back then it was like, oh, I might have I think I know it. I'm not sure. So for you, it was small, relatively unknown. Just take us through your recruitment decision-making process that you went through. And I guess I'm privy to one side of it, but I'd love to hear, on reflection, what you went through.
I think it was quite a journey from the beginning to the end. And the recruitment process itself lended itself to me landing on the decision really comfortably, I guess. From our first conversation where you said, oh, I'm working on this brand called Mutti. And I remember saying, who? What brand? And you said Mutti. And I walked downstairs into my kitchen, opened the pantry, and long and behold, I've got Mutti in my pantry. I've purchased it, and the brand was at that sort of early stages of brand awareness, but still providing quality. So I remember at the start thinking, wow, I buy this brand because I like the product, but I couldn't instantly connect with it. But yeah, definitely interested. I think for me, I was looking for a few things. I was looking for a brand company culture that aligned with my values and in terms of a brand that I could really get behind and work for. I was looking for leadership in terms of the person that I would work for and what they could, their vision and where they were heading in terms of the company, and also what I could learn from them. But also I was looking for impact and how I could impact strategy and change. And through the recruitment process, it became really clear that I could make, those three things were being addressed, those key criteria. And yeah, I could make a really big impact to the future of the business in Australia. So that really was what drew me to it in the end.
Did you have concerns about moving to a much smaller business where, let's face it, you had no resource at all, really? you were going to be the
one-man band.
Well, yeah, you were going to be the national sales manager, the national account manager, the national account executive. You were everybody.
Yes.
It was a big shift.
Yes, absolutely, I did. But I think I looked at the pros and cons, and I think certainly I could see the vision. So for me, there was a little bit of hesitancy, but I believed in the MD's vision, where the company was heading, and I knew I could help get us there. So I think sometimes you've got to take a leap of faith, get out of your comfort zone, and I wasn't scared to do the hard work. But it definitely changes the way you work, obviously. But I think I was just willing to take that leap, knowing that it would be really beneficial in the end and rewarding.
I think we do work with, love working with you guys at Mutti, work with a number of other smaller businesses going through fast transition. And it's conceptually, easy to get your head around the fact in a small business you have bigger business impact. It's quite cool, but the bit that often people kind of gloss over is how hard it is, because you are working in the detail and rolling your sleeves up, and that's real work as well as the cool strategy stuff. But I think it's, if you believe as you did in the vision and the potential, and you can see the journey, that's where you got to start. I think your thought process. If the journey excites you, then you've got something, and then you kind of figure out, well, what's my contribution to that journey? Does that excite me too? And the people that I'm working with, am I impressed by them? Am I going to learn from them? Can I get on with them? And then you've really got something to look at. So it feels like that's exactly what you went through in terms of your decision making, which is great. I
think absolutely that's right. If you've sometimes it's a gut feeling.
Yeah,
it's like the connection you have with the person or the company as well, and you just have to believe that's right.
Right,
go with it.
Well, let's look at Mutti. So, what size is Mutti now? Would you say compared to when you started there 3 or so years ago, Daniela?
Oh, okay, wow. So Mutti globally is in 100 markets. And there's 6 subsidiaries, of which Australia is one of them, and the UK is opening in 2024. And then we've got France, Germany, the USA, and the Nordics, which includes companies like Norway and Finland and Sweden. And so that business is now worth $1 billion in Australian dollars today, which is twice the size of what it was 5 years ago, which is an incredible growth trajectory. And in terms of Australia, we are in the latest MAT to June. Our business is double what it was in 2020 and 3 times what it was in 2019. So the business has grown enormously, and Australia is the biggest market outside of Europe. So since I started, and also since 2020, it's just the trajectory has been quite accelerated, and the business is just continues to go from strength to strength.
It's a fantastic success story. It really is. And you guys are winning awards left, right, and centre, which is which is great. But it does set a high bar, doesn't it? So every year you think, wow, what have we achieved this year? We've done so much. And the more success you have, I guess, the higher the expectation you put on yourselves. Perhaps Mutti puts on you globally. The customers, set their expectation very high as well. How do you manage to keep those expectations in check, but also create the right balance with ambition and drive and energy that you still want to have for the business?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And I think I don't see it as challenging or tough. I sort of see it as really exciting. And, we are a high performance team and we want to do the best we can, but we don't take ourselves too seriously either. So I think at the end of the day is that human element. So in terms of what we're doing, I guess, and how we manage it is, we set up this category function, which is at the heart of everything we do. Because we want to drive category thought leadership and excellence in Mutti. And we have alongside that customer pillars, so category leadership, excellence in planning and execution, and supply chain best in class. So that anchors us in everything we do. Like we're just staying true to those principles. And from a consumer perspective, we are still in very early stages in terms of brand awareness. But what we're trying to do from a consumer perspective is drive trial, awareness, and conversion ultimately. But in terms of that, I think we just have so much work to do, right? So, we want to continue to work with our customers. We want to continue to drive the category. And we have so much work with education and inspiration of consumers. So we just stay sort of focused on, what else is there to do, as opposed to, how do we meet the expectations of what we've done? So
it's quite rational thinking in terms of, there's an emotional excitement about what you're doing, but there's still many more things to pick off. Because you look at a fully optimized business, when it's been around a while, they've squeezed everything out of every channel, customer, and it's kind of, they're trying to drive growth through often very challenging innovation pipelines. Whereas you've actually still got lots of optimization still to do in terms of fully exploring the category, expanding the brand, driving consumer awareness and maximizing your channel mix. There's actually loads to do then.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot to do. And I think, our vision is to be the preferred premium tomato brand of consumers all over the world. I think I've said that right. And we have a roadmap. So we do have a 2027 roadmap. So we're really clear on our North Star, in terms of what we have to achieve and deliver. So as long as we kind of, I talked about the category consumer and the customer piece, but then there's also like what we're trying to achieve as a business strategy as well. And I think, we haven't reached, I guess, where, the maximum growth potential. And even with our categories like the scratch cooking categories and penetration in terms of Australian households is still quite low. So maybe only 40% of households are using a passata because they don't know how to. So we're trying to educate consumers and customers into, how they can actually better their meals. So that's exciting as well because there's growth just in that. People learning how to use products.
Great. Now, this is your first sales director role.
Yes.
Lots of sales directors. We mentioned 3 earlier on. And you, I know you're a part of some sales director forums, so you come into contact with a lot of them. Do you think being a sales director of a business like Mutti is different from, say, the role that Jeff might have or Jamie might have or others might have?
Yeah. Look, in my view, I think sales directors' roles are different from company and different industries. And I think, they're not all the same. They've all got sort of the differences, and that's the same for Mutti. So I think in terms of my role, if I look at the KPIs I have, it's commercial delivery, it's leadership of the team, it's customer relationship management. So I think a lot of those sort of core KPIs don't change. I guess for my business where it's different with Mutti, it's, we really have to focus on what's going to add value and prioritize because we have a different size team and it's smaller, and so we're all doing a little bit more. We've also got global engagement because we're an Australian subsidiary with global backing. So we have to be able to work with, marketing, supply chain, finance partners overseas. So, and that has a regular business rhythm. So that's also different. But I think, ultimately, I see a real benefit in my particular role as a sales director within Mutti because I also play a role in creating process if it's not there, but also we've got agility so we can really move on things quickly. So I really enjoy that as well. But yeah, there's certainly some differences, but a lot of similarities in terms of the deliverables of the role. Yeah.
And it's probably back again to where the business is on its journey. Every business is, some businesses, the journey's, it's steady as she goes. It's just, don't mess it up.
Yeah.
and others, it's for you, it's guess, where do you place your bets? Because so many things you can do, and you haven't got unlimited resources. You'll be quite clear in your decision making, and applying a rational thinking to that. Your pillars, to form your framework for what you are going to do, which is great. But you've also got great people around you.
That's right. Yes.
We've loved working with you guys and building that team. You've got exceptional capability in that team as well, who can probably stretch further than most others can, which is cool. What about you? What do you bring as a sales director? What are your strengths?
Oh, good question. Look, I think I was taught very early on about the importance of commercial intensity. So I think my particular strength is that. So I'm very commercial, very across the detail, and really, I like to look at sort of the bigger picture of where this is heading. But apart from that particular sort of skill set or I guess experience, I do love working with customers. So I'm really passionate about customers and how we can partner to solve problems or challenges or just to capitalize on opportunities together. So I really enjoy that. And I think through my experience, I've also built a lot of resilience. And I think that's really important because not everything is going to go your way. And sometimes you've got to learn to stay calm and find your path out of it.
Right. And what do you have to work on? What's your growth journey like as a leader?
I think
feels like I'm interviewing you now.
I think that you can never stop learning, right? And I think leadership's one of those. I think it's really difficult to be a good leader, and I think we've all had a bad boss in our lives, or someone that we kind of wouldn't want to model ourselves against. And in the same instance, we've had a great manager or a great boss that's inspired. And I think for me, I just want to continue to develop as a good leader to be able to then inspire others and have a really great high performance team under me. So for me, probably it's just, I don't think you ever stop learning, and I think leadership's a journey that you have to keep focused on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love your views on what's the broader market looks like now. Apologies if, as a podcast listener, you're listening in 2026 to this, and this is we're trying to avoid too many questions about moments in time, but we're in an interesting economic period, which is August 2023, stabilizing interest rates, inflation, growth rates starting to kind of normalize. Consumers are tightening their belts. So there's a kind of lag effect there between the economy and consumer sentiment, I would say. If you were to kind of jump ahead with your sales director hat on and look at the kind of FMCG retail market for the next 6 to 12 months, it's hard to say because even economists don't get this right, but what do you think is going to happen?
Good question. Okay, so I think I'm across food service or catering and retail in our business, and I look, it's still yet to be seen what's going to happen across those channels and how they will interact. However, I do think that the biggest challenge is going to be cost of living. And as you've mentioned, it's impacting Australian families, it's impacting shoppers. Everyone's quite sort of hypersensitive to it, from retailers to suppliers. And I think cost of living is going to impact people in different ways. And one of the trends that we've seen is fake away. So basically bringing takeaway in-house into your house, eating in more than out, and then having like beautiful experiences at home. So, so for us, there's opportunity in that because there's premiumization within the categories that we play in. As well as obviously, there are going to be shoppers that need to downtrade and find something that's more affordable, but there's going to be a lot of Australian consumers and people that want to be cooking at home and cooking better. So I think it's going to be probably a two-way laneway, or a trends in two-way. So, but I think cost of living is definitely going to impact the industry over the next 6 to 12 months. And that shopper behaviour is going to change. And I think it's more important than ever for us to understand our category role and how we support.
Yeah. Fake away.
Fake away. Yes.
That's new. I did a fake away last night then because we got a takeaway from a restaurant we normally sit in at.
Right.
Aqua Fresco in Harbord in Freshwater. It's the Pilu pizza place. But they do great pizzas, pastas, good quality Italian, but they did a takeaway. Don't normally do it. That's we did a fake away. Great.
So you could do it even the next level, which would be making your own pizza and using some Mutti pizza sauce on it.
Right.
And
okay. All right. That's next step. Love it. Cool. Now, for anyone who's inspired by the success you've had, Mutti's had, and is thinking, actually, I fancy working with a smaller organization, something that's fast growth. That sounds like it could be for me. What questions should they ask themselves before they kind of say, okay, I want to do this? And, what questions should they be asking a business they're potentially interested in?
Yeah, I think it all starts with your life, your position, your situation in your life and your life values and, what's important to you and, your purpose and, the role of your career, where you are with your family and et cetera. But I think it's probably important to understand where you're at and in your career journey. But what I would say is around, what gaps are there in your development, like versus where you want to be? What gaps are there, and can a small business perhaps help fast track or broaden that for you? Because I think, the opportunity you have in a small business is what I feel is like the opportunity I had with Unilever in New Zealand, where you have exposure to more, you're accountable for more, and it really helps you close some of those gaps and just accelerate your development. So I think understand those gaps. And I would be asking questions like, the vision of the business, particularly if it's a new business, like what's the plans? Where is it going? How are we going to get there? What if this scenario happens? What if that scenario happens? Just to understand how much planning has gone into that business from the leadership, and just to understand the trajectory so you can see whether you actually fit in within that. Yeah. Great
advice. And I agree with the piece on vision. it's one of the first questions we ask any new client is, what's your vision? And sometimes they really struggle themselves to figure out what it is. And then because they get so caught up in the moment of delivering, they forget they've got this vision they're aiming towards. But it's really important to be clear on that, because it's got to be clear, and you've got to get it and think, I buy into that as well. Yeah,
I think so, the vision. And I think the other thing as well is you will still continue to develop, but you have to understand what is available to you. So, it might not be as structured as a program you might get in a large organization, but there's still lots of great opportunities. There might be a bit more bespoke, or there might be up to you to decide how you want to, focus your development time. But I think a company that supports you in that way is really important as well, which I believe Mutti does.
We often learn from mistakes in life. When it comes to career, are there common mistakes you see people make? And maybe there's something in your career you think, okay, that was my biggest learning that you might want to share with us?
I think, look, I'm a believer in getting out of your comfort zone for sure, and, taking an opportunity if it comes to you, because I think you can really grow out of that. However, I also think patience is a virtue, and, being able to stay in a role for a bit longer and learning and, really making sure you've got the right skill set and capability developing. I think that's so important. And so the biggest mistake I see is people becoming very impatient really quickly, and then missing out on an opportunity that would have been coming up maybe in the next year or so because they just weren't ready to wait for that opportunity. So I think that's probably the biggest mistake, because I see a lot of talented people miss out on great opportunities because of that. And also I see some mistakes is like in not taking time to self-reflect. So I think keeping a journal is really worthwhile, or having a mentor, or just having someone that you can reflect on your, how your behavior, your experiences, your development. I think that's really important, because if you don't stop to reflect on how you're going, I guess you just keep moving too quickly. You don't really get, you might not be heading the right way because you haven't had a chance to really review or self-reflect on your performance. So I think that's important. And people that I think it's also really important to get, I think I've heard this before and I totally agree with it, is getting as much experience as you can early in your career. Take as many different roles as you can, move around, experience different things, because then it's obviously more difficult to do that as you move into senior roles. Yeah, it's a balance, isn't it? It's be patient, don't always jump, but equally, make sure you don't just stay and do nothing. You've got to make sure you and if you're not learning, and move. But sometimes the assessment of am I learning is not very well done, and hence the move too early. Yeah, cool. So now, having got to sales director, if you were to speak to somebody aspiring to be the next Daniela Stapleton, what 3 pieces of advice would you give them? So the advice I would give someone who's aspiring to be a sales director is invest in yourself. So invest time in your development, and think about, if you're in a national account manager role, think about a national business manager role, and develop your plan based on your strengths to get to that role. So really invest your time. I would also say focus on activities that drive and add value to the business. So don't try to do everything. I think we all tend to work on a million things at once, but really stand back and have a look at what you're working on and add value. And the final thing I would say is just get out of your comfort zone as much as you can, because if you start feeling really comfortable, then you're probably not in the right place. So I would say, if you want to aspire to the next thing, just, keep looking for new experiences. It doesn't have to mean a new job, but just don't be comfortable. Keep learning. Yeah, great. And I think new experiences can come absolutely in your own organization. Just seek them. Yes. Yeah. Talk to others, get involved in projects, look where you can create value, but what's in it for the business too. Yeah, great. What does the future look like for you? I know you're reasonably new into your sales director role, so I know you've got to spend time in that role and master that, but if you look further afield to the longer term horizon, do you have a goal in mind? Yeah, so if you had a sneak peek at my personal development plan, which is focused on strengths, not weaknesses, I've got there an objective in the next 5 to 10 years, but really closer to 5 to lead a subsidiary or lead a market or be in sort of a managing director role. So I've just got that as a vision, but I am sort of really comfortable in the role I am today. I shouldn't say that, but I'm really focused on the role I've got today because, as you said, I am new in the role. But yeah, long term, I am working with a mentor. I work on my own personal development through self-reflection, but that's the ultimate goal.
Fantastic. I think it's a great goal to have. And I've no doubt when the time is right, you'll get there.
Oh, thank you.
Superb. Really enjoyed the conversation, Daniela. Absolutely superb. Really a lot of fun, a lot of good areas we covered today. So thanks for sharing your insights. Another awesome female sales leader, guys. I hope you've noted that. We've got a great group of females who we're giving you access to in terms of how this role's evolved. And it's by no means the domain of the male anymore. It's getting closer to 50-50, I reckon. But so thank you to you for listening. Next up in the pod, we have Kate Bean, friend of yours, Daniela, from Kellogg's, one of Australia's absolute leaders in category. And we're going to really deep dive into category. We haven't done enough in that space in terms of the pod, given how much we recruit in that world. So I'm really looking forward to that. After Kate, we've got somebody who's now high flying in the CMO world, a constant in the Aussie top 50 CMOs, Yash Gandhi of Bayada. And if you've missed it, I'd implore you to jump all over our previous podcast with Arya Michael, who's a 22-year-old founder of Drinks Factory, running a business of about 150 employees. Incredible at the age of 22. Damn sure I wasn't. So thanks again, Daniela.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast from AXR Recruitment and Search. We're passionate about helping you get the most out of your sales and marketing career. Keep listening as we bring you more career insights and advice from Australia's top sales and marketing leaders. You just can't get this career advice anywhere else. My name is Mike Dickson. See you next time on Your Future in Sales and Marketing.